In his talk on India's vision for the Indo-Pacific given during his visit to Thailand, India's Minister for External Affairs Subrahmanyam Jaishankar discussed his country's Act East policy, with cooperation expanded from mainly the economy to defense and security, especially maritime and greater people-to-people ties, while emphasizing the need to consolidate powers in Asia.
India envisages the ASEAN to be at the center of the Indo-Pacific. This is an increasingly seamless space that is home to more than 64% of the global population and which contributes to 60% of the world's GDP. We envisage a free, open, inclusive, peaceful, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region, one which is built on a rules-based international order, sustainable and transparent infrastructure investment, freedom of navigation and overflight, unimpeded lawful commerce, mutual respect for sovereignty, peaceful resolution of disputes, as well as equality of all nations. We have actively fostered the Quad mechanism. To me, India-ASEAN today is it's got very substantive achievements to show.
Mr. Jaishankar also shared his impressions of Thailand.
I see Thailand both as a partner and as an exemplar. The exemplar bit is I look at Thailand in ASEAN. The second is the areas where Thailand has really played to its strengths. I look at what you've done in Thailand with tourism, where I think there's learning for India. Also, Thailand in terms of making it easier to do business. There is also the strong cultural side of Thailand. That certainly, I think, appeals to a lot of Indians. I'm very fascinated by historically how Thailand has navigated its diplomatic challenges.
On the rise of Chinese influence in the region, the minister does not strictly see a rivalry between the two ancient Asian civilizations, but rather urges cooperation. This may be difficult to achieve, however, considering their unresolved border tensions.
The rise of China is obviously one of the big developments of our times. There is also the rise of India, and I quite accept that of China has been much bigger and much stronger. It's not always a contest. There can be cooperation, collaboration as well. Deng Xiaoping is supposed to have said that the Asian century will happen when China and India come together. That possibly is true. But the Asian century will be difficult to happen if India and China don't come together. And I think today one of the big questions is really where China-India relations is going. Because at the moment, the relationship is going through an extremely difficult phase because of what the Chinese have done in the last 2 years in our border areas.
The minister explained the reason why India maintains close ties with Myanmar's junta, citing the inevitability of continued relations as immediate neighbors and the limitations it has, while expressing, as most of the world does, support for a return to democracy.
We deeply believe that Myanmar is best served by being a democracy, by reflecting what are the sentiments and the wishes of its people. Our positions have been very clear. Now, obviously, there are, as a neighbor, we can't be impervious to the day-to-day management. We have a border, we have insurgents on the border, we have organized crime, we have COVID, we have refugees. Our approach is not something which is responding to what is immediate. It's a consistent trend. You have an understanding, you have interest, you have an empathy when you're a land neighbor. When you're not a land neighbor, when you're far away, then life is very binary, it's very black and white.
Responding to the issue of India still buying oil from Russia after Russia started a war in Ukraine, Mr. Jaishankar pointed to the necessity of the imports while urging timely and peaceful dialogue.
I just want to in a sense, bring up the issue of different yardsticks of judgment, double standards at times. I mean, we are not the only oil importer. And by the way, there are no sanctions on oil. It's reasonable that we too be allowed to take care of our interests, particularly because we are a low-income society. For us, the increase in energy prices really hurt. You know, people talk about what we should or we should not do. We are paying the price for this conflict too, in a very, very existential way. We have been very clear that the only way out is by return to dialogue and diplomacy. We have been pushing for it, but you know, at the end of the day, any advice or any effort is as good as the listener.
Hatay Tesheki Tiranan reporting for Thai PBS World.